So good morning and a very warm welcome to the release of the Climate Change Performance Index. And in this year we will present the CCPI 2025, and it's actually the 20th time that we publish the CCPI. My name is Thea Uhlich. I'm co-author of the CCPI. I'm working with Germanwatch and I'm moderating today, and we will start with 15 minutes presentation, and after that we will have 15 minutes time for questions. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to the panel. We have Jan Burg, who is co-author of the CCPI as well, working with Germanwatch, and actually he developed the CCPI back in 2005. Then I want to welcome Janet Milongo, Senior Manager for Energy Transition with CAN International, and last but not least, Niklas Höhne from the New Climate Institute and also co-author of the CCPI. And I would like to hand over directly to Niklas to kick us off with explaining the CCPI methodology.
Yeah, thank you very much. 2024 has been a catastrophic year with climate change impacts that we have not seen before. We have seen floods, droughts, extreme weather events that are totally outside of the scale. And that is because of the human-induced climate change, which we have seen global average temperature or monthly average temperatures above 1.5 degrees for the last 14 months now. The long-term 10-year average is at 1.3 degrees, and it will also hit 1.5 in the early 2030s if we don't do something. And this is what is now necessary, and important is that these severe events will not go away. As long as we emit greenhouse gases, temperature will rise, and also the likelihood of these extreme weather events will rise. So that's why it's so important that global greenhouse gas emissions are reduced as fast as possible. We can, because the one surprising thing that's happening each year is that renewables are expanding much faster than we think. We are always surprised that this is going faster than we thought, and that's why now the world is at a tipping point. Global greenhouse gas emissions, a peak is within reach, and it's now up to national governments to reduce their emissions as fast as possible to prevent that the severe damages increase even further. So they have to really flip into emergency mode, do everything that they can, really do something very different. A quantum leap forward is now necessary. And to check whether governments are really doing that, we do the Climate Change Performance Index for the 20th time now, and we look at 4 different categories. We look at greenhouse gas emissions, that's the most important thing, that's driving climate change. We look at how they're doing on renewable energy. We look at how they're doing on energy use, because without energy efficiency we will not get there. And the very special thing that we are doing in the Climate Change Performance Index is evaluating the climate policies. We have 450 experts that look and rate the climate policies of the countries. We cover 63 countries plus the European Union, and total we cover more than 90% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So many countries are on the list. And if we go to the next slide, we are not only looking at these 4 categories, but the important part of this index is we are looking backwards. We're looking at how the past trend has been. We are looking at how the current situation is. And we are also looking forward what the targets are saying that these countries are setting themselves. So it's a very comprehensive picture backwards from today and looking forward. So without further ado, that's the methodology. Back to you, Thea.
Thank you very much. Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure for me to present you the results of this year's ranking table. Again, with our indicators, we check whether one of our 63 countries is doing enough to prevent dangerous climate change, and so we see that this is, again, not the case. So the first 3 ranks are not occupied. No country deserved it to be on the podium, which is a worrying message. But on the other hand, we see some countries doing better than others. Denmark is the 4th time in a row the leader of the ranking. Denmark is really good when it comes to a steady and comprehensive climate policy. managed to reduce its emission by nearly 60% since 1990 and has strong targets and good renewable deployments. One of the biggest climber this year is the UK, back on track after falling a lot of ranks last year. UK is doing much better this year, so hopefully they will continue to do that. One of the largest emitters when it comes to absolute emissions is India. However, Indians' per capita emissions, which is important for us, are one of the lowest in from all our countries, and the deployment of renewable policies and the renewables is relatively good in India. Same goes for Chile. When it comes to medium-rated countries, we see Germany falling 2 ranks compared to last year. Germany is doing in the moment much better on renewables. However, we see some worrisome developments regarding the transport and housing sector. I have to apologize that I really have to run quickly through this ranking, and we will have time for questions afterwards. Let me come to Brazil, next year's host of the COP. Brazil recovered this year and last year from really weak rankings from the Bolsonaro time. It's ranked 28 this year. We see much stronger measures to protect the Amazon forest. However, still a high reliance on fossil fuels in Brazil. When we come to the to the low-rated country in orange here, let me focus on South Africa a bit. South Africa climbs up 7 spots in this year's CCPI and is ranked on 38. South Africa, the good thing is that they signed a new climate change bill just recently, which really should have then a comprehensive and through all sectors a plan and adaptation and mitigation plan. But still, South Africa is highly reliant on coal, and renewables are lagging behind. Indonesia is also an interesting country, one of the countries with the highest emissions from the forestry sector, which is really worrisome, and the measures here are not enough in Indonesia, all our experts are saying. However, they have just submitted a new NDC, so a new goal, but also this is not sufficient and not in line with the Paris Agreement. Let me go through Australia on rank at 52 this year. Australia is interesting because there was for a long time really at the bottom of the CCPI. They are trying to fix what former governments have done. They really try to bring up more renewables in the moment. However, it's really going slow. So still in the back of the ranking. And last few words on the largest emitters in the world is China and the US. China ranked 55 this year. We see a really mixed picture in China. On the one hand, the emissions are still increasing until 2023. However, if you look at the latest numbers, there might be some plateau of the emissions in China, and we really hope that the massive deployment of renewables and electrification in China will show results soon. Well, the US climbed up a few ranks in the past years. and the Climate Change, the Reduction in Inflation Act from Biden worked, and we see massive deployments of renewables. However, we really don't know what this will mean in the future if the elected President Trump will probably step out of the Paris Agreement and try to get rid of the most of climate policies we see in the US. So last but not least, or last and least in this case, the countries we see in the back are Russia, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. All 4 countries have kind of the same profile, really high emissions, high per capita emissions, nearly no renewables, and also the policy evaluation, despite of UAE, are really weak. So these countries need really to ramp up its ambition. So run through this table, and I would love to give the word back to Thea.
Thank you very much, Jan. And we already heard that renewable energy will play a crucial role. So I'm happy to hand over to Janet, and she will give us some insights into the renewable energy category.
The CCPI is telling a very consistent story over and over again. As you've had, this is the 20th edition of this index. And it is really time for countries to pay attention to what the CCPI and very many other reports are revealing. One glaring story that is coming out of the CCPI is that progressive targets coupled with policies really are the foundation on which countries can transition away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And this is also coupled with highest amounts of energy efficiency, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and it's not just about emissions. At the end of the day, this is about changing the lives of the people who are the consumers of the energy. And so this would provide a cleaner, a more affordable, flexible energy system. So this is what we are working towards. And this actually is the reason, as Jan mentioned, that Denmark is leading the pack. Although, again, as he mentioned, in as much as Denmark is leading the pack, it's still at 4th place. So countries really, at the end of the day, are not doing enough. And that is the message of the CCPI. There is an opportunity, several opportunities actually, for countries to step up and, as Nicholas was mentioning, really flip into emergency mode at this point. It is no coincidence that the worst performance in the index are actually the largest fossil fuel producers. And even those that are doing better, the likes of China, as Jan mentioned, is also revealing another interesting story there, that you cannot be ramping up your renewables and still producing fossil fuels. It doesn't work. This is a comprehensive approach that is required for real and deep emissions and to really curb global warming to 1.5 by 2030, which is just 5 years or less away from now. So we are really in a climate emergency. And we see from the CCPI and even the slide that is presented to you there that there is also another worrisome trend of energy inequity presenting itself. As you can see, deployment of renewables is largely concentrated in some countries and regions, and others completely left out, which is a trend that will not result in meeting the global goals. And the global goals are global, and it needs global effort. And developing countries are part of that equation. Therefore, even now as we speak about finance at COP29, it is very important to realize that this is an obligation that countries have under the Paris Agreement. It is not new. Countries signed on to the agreement. It has been known for a while, and it is time for us to get the adequate finance, the grant-based public finance required for all countries to transition together to the cleaner energy future that we're looking forward to. As I said previously, we do have opportunities. One is in the finance goal that is currently being discussed here. Secondly, countries are in the process of NDC updates, and that is another key area that countries can match their targets and their policies and really deliver the clean energy future that is envisioned here. It is absurd. The slide before you is quite absurd. And it is absurd, for example, if you look at the map there on Africa, that, you know, a continent that really did not contribute to the climate crisis that we have right now is lagging behind. And it's lagging behind in deployment, it's lagging behind in finance. The size of deployment in that one continent alone is less than some countries, for example, Netherlands, which is a trajectory that needs to change. Therefore, my call would be for countries also to really accelerate action, take it very serious, put in the goodwill that is required, and really meet the climate emergency with the emergence or urgent action that matches the climate crisis that we have currently. Thank you. Back to you, Thea.
Thank you very much, Janet. And in the sake of time, I would skip the next slide and go over to questions. And I would like to open the floor to questions. And as this is a press conference, I would like to start by taking questions from journalists first. And please state your name and the medium you work with, and keep your question as short as possible. Thank you very much. Do we have questions? I see one question here.
Hello, my name is Manuel Planelles. I'm from El País, Spain newspaper.
Can you speak up a little bit, please? It's hard
my
to
name
understand.
is Manuel Planelles. I'm journalist from El País, from Spain. I would like to know your opinion on the different situation and different results in Argentina and United Kingdom. For Mr. Buck. United Kingdom.
Jan, you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I know that these two countries have a special relationship with each other. No. Well, on the one hand, we see a new president elected in Argentina, which is President Milei, who's a denier of the climate crisis, who said that market mechanism should solve all problems. And from all our experience and from all studies that we know, and all the experts in Argentina are saying that this will not work. This will not solve the problem of Argentina. Argentina is mainly has a lot of problems because of the climate crisis, droughts, and other really severe problems. And so this new president, which has deleted all the words out of all the official documents of climate change and climate crisis, he's just deleted the words out of it, is really what will not solve the problem. When it comes to UK, maybe Nicholas, you want to say a word UK?
Yeah, UK is a very promising candidate. They have moved up in the Climate Change Performance Index. They are really, with the new government that is coming on board, they are now planning to implement ambitious policies. They have submitted here, as far as we can judge so far, an ambitious NDC. We are lacking more information, but this is really a very good example where a country for a long period of time sets climate policies. Yeah, it's not a stop and go, a little bit of stop and go in the UK, but what's really important is their carbon budget law, their climate law, which basically gives long-term certainty away from fossil fuels. That's, I think, a big message that comes from the UK.
Thank you. And maybe just a small addition to the UK is that they shut down their last coal-fired power plant, which is also a very promising site. And I saw a few more hands. Maybe we can take a few hands all together. First, second, and third then, please.
Good morning. I am Vogar Seydi from Azerbaijan State News Agency. My question is, I think, could be to any of you. You guys did a wonderful job. I see that 67-3, or 64 countries are under the radar, and I see that 67 minus 3, 64 countries are under the radar. And my question is, do your plans include expanding the geography? And for example, I would very much be happy to see Azerbaijan as a host country of COP29 among the countries and to see the progress. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe we can hear the question in front. The lady in front had raised her hand. No, here? Okay, you first and then you, sorry. Okay.
Hi, from journalist from United Daily News based in Taiwan. So basically we're facing the same problem. We are having a tremendous growth in renewable energy, but we have not seen the phase out of fossil fuels. So my question being that, how is this happening? I mean, we're seeing a great growth, great improvement in renewable energy, but it's not replacing fossil fuels. And I wonder why is that? Thank you.
Thanks. And last question for this round, here in front, please.
Hello, my name is Agnete. I'm from the Danish Broadcast Corporation, and I'm asking Denmark tops the list, but we also have one of the biggest carbon footprints per capita in the world. Aren't you afraid that putting Denmark on top of a list like that tells the world that we are more climate friendly than we are as a country?
Thank you very much. Maybe we can start with the geography question, if we want to extend the country list. Jan, please.
Well, these 63 countries plus the EU cover 90% of the global emissions. So the rest of the 130 countries have taken the last of the 10%. So that's why we choose the list. We extended step by step the list of countries in the last year. So we integrate Uzbekistan, for example, Chile, and a few others like Nigeria. And we will probably do that step by step, and Azerbaijan is definitely an interesting country to doing that. However, we need to have experts in the country, so it's not just data, but it's also about experts. And so it will take also some time. We take a lot of effort, country by country, to really analyze it, and that's why we also need the resources for that.
Thanks. So we have two questions, one on Taiwan and one on Denmark. Niklas, you want to say something?
Yeah, maybe the question on Taiwan, which is not only on Taiwan, but I think it's a general issue. That is, renewables are booming, but they're not yet crowding out fossil fuels. And there's two reasons for that. One is, in many countries, we see still an increase in energy demand. So the energy demand is faster than the build out of the renewables. And then as both trends cancel each other out and emissions are still up or stable. Our hopeful assessment is that renewables are coming online exponentially. So there's exponential growth, and that means at one point that growth will be faster than the growth of fossil fuels, and then allows a very rapid decline in greenhouse gas emissions. And it will also happen that there will be an overcapacity. So currently too much fossil fuel infrastructure plus a lot of renewable infrastructure. And in that situation, probably the renewables will win because they can produce energy at much, much lower cost than the fossil fuels once the installations are there. That's the big hope, that will happen, but we haven't seen it in many countries yet, but this is definitely on the list. All projections say that emissions now can reduce much, much faster than we thought only a few years ago because renewables are so fast. That's good. And the last one on Denmark, maybe quickly, or do you want to take it?
Yeah, Janet wants to say something first.
Very good idea.
Yeah, just to add on to what Niklas has already said on the trajectory of renewables and fossil fuels, this also is quite a case for countries setting the right priorities. For example, we've just spoken about the UK example that they've closed their last coal mine. And if you examine that case, you'll see that it's a question of, firstly, the right targets, and policy that led eventually to the close of that of the mines. So this is a call also for other countries, Taiwan included, to really prioritize fossil fuel eradication in their system.
Thanks. So UK closed their last coal-fired power plant, but Jan, you want to say something about Denmark?
Yeah, so on the one hand, I totally agree that the Danish emissions are still too high, around 6 or 7 tons per capita in the moment, which is higher than a lot of countries that we have here. On the other hand, Denmark started in 1990 with 15 to 16 tons. So it really was one of the countries that has, especially since 2010, and that's why we look at the performance of the countries in the most recent time and not so much about the historic responsibility, has increased its ambition in the field of renewables especially, but also reduced its emissions. You're maybe saying that, and maybe I would need to say that the CCPI is looking at production-based emissions only and not on consumption-based emissions, so not on the imports of emissions, which could infect the ranking of Denmark if we would do not. The problem of data availability and data accuracy is here, why we don't take that. And so, yeah, I personally, and it is a comparative thing here. So we compare the countries with each other. So Denmark is better than the others. It's not a perfect record. That's what we show with leaving the first 3 ranks open. But if I look all on my data, I really cannot see a country that performs really better. If you look at renewables, energy use, which is a problem in Denmark still, efficiency is still an issue. From these 4 categories, energy use category is the worst. But even the Danish experts from NGOs and think tanks giving relatively good grades for Denmark's performance. So all these 4 categories gives us a relatively good picture, but still not a perfect one, that's true.
Thank you very much, Jan. We do have some more questions, I think. 1 and 2 here, please. Please keep your questions very short.
It's Masato Kimura, Japanese freelance journalist. My question is about Japan. Why every year Japanese reputation is so low? How Japanese government should improve their policy?
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful, quick question, and hopefully this second question is also that brief.
Basically the same question, but for New Zealand, why has New Zealand dropped in the rankings?
I think you have to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Mark Dalder from Newsroom New Zealand. Same question, but for New Zealand, basically, why has New Zealand dropped in the rankings and what should be done to improve their position?
Thank you very much. So we have Japan and New Zealand and only 2 minutes left, so please go.
Yep. I'll take Japan. Japan is at 58, so relatively low. And the main issue here is the phase out of fossil fuels. Japan is still relying on fossil fuels. The NDC is currently not being met by current policies, and renewables are not expanding as fast as possible. So clear phase out date for fossil fuels, phase out of coal, and a massive ramp up of renewable energy. That's what Japan needs to do now.
Perfect, thanks.
And to New Zealand. New Zealand former government sets relatively strong targets, but the experts from New Zealand are criticizing the new government that all the implementation of the policies that we need to implement these good targets are lacking and are not there anymore, especially when it comes to agriculture, which is the main issue in New Zealand. So we see a huge difference between what they plan, what they want, and what they're really doing. So that's in the moment an issue. When it comes to renewables, it's relatively good, even target and the last developments in the last years. However, even here, the policies to go for to really reach the ambitious targets of more than 50% renewables in 2030 are not in place. And the energy use is also much too high. So these are the main reasons. And we have country scorecards for every country where we can go deeper into the countries where we can explain that better. And of course, you can ask us afterwards.
So thank you very much. We have to come to an end in this press conference, but if you want further information or have interview requests, please reach out to our press colleagues or approach us directly. We will be standing in front of the room for a while, and in the annex of the press release you find contact details to our national climate experts, so please do not hesitate to contact them as well. And with that, thank you very much for your attention and have a good day.
Second.
No worries. We are just the next. Hello.